Well, hi. Today is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. I'm Todd Studer, and this is Morning Coffee. Looks like we're going to have some rain on and off this week, but I'm looking forward at least checking that extended forecast into the weekend. Looks like it should be pretty nice, and things a little bit cooler than what they have been, so I will definitely take that. Middle of the summer right now, and you would think that looking ahead to fall would be the last thing that we would want to do, but before you know it, college football season is going to be here. It is just, about 6.5 weeks away, I think, from the start of the season. Iowa State actually plays on August 23rd. They have a road game all the way in Ireland, taking on K-State. And then the following week, everybody else is getting going to work, and Iowa will be hosting a home game on August 30th. And I thought, who else to talk about the upcoming football season but Travis Waldstein, Ursurf Heating and Air Conditioning, and Waldstein Plumbing, one of the biggest Hawkeye fans I know. So he's going to give us what turned out to be a pretty realistic conversation about what he feels the Hawkeyes are capable of this year. And also, this is a longer conversation will be released on an episode of his podcast, Circle of Trades, where he talks about Iowa State, he talks about Nebraska, all of it. So that is coming up soon. We're going to just bring you the Iowa portion of that conversation today. So that is coming up on Morning Coffee. If you need precision metal fabrication done right, look no further than Foxco Fabrication in Council Bluffs. Custom welding to large-scale manufacturing, bringing your ideas to life with expert craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology. Whether it's industrial, commercial, or custom fabrication, they're going to get the job done on time and built to last. Visit foxcofab.com to take a look at some of the projects they've already done. If you're navigating the healthcare system, you know it can be challenging, frustrating, and time-consuming for you and your family. That's where My Nurse Healthcare in Council Bluffs steps in. Nurse advocates providing one-on-one guidance and support every step of the way. You know you're going to get the right care from the right providers at the right time when you have a dedicated nurse by your side. Visit mynursehealthcare.com or call 402-250-8465. Let them take the stress out of healthcare. And if you're looking for a laid-back spot with great food and even better company, come to the Mile Away in Council Bluffs. This family-run bar and grill is your go-to for mouth-watering wings, unbeatable weekly specials, and a welcoming atmosphere that feels like home. The Mile Away has you covered, located at 20270 Old Lincoln Highway. That's just north of Council Bluffs on Old Lincoln Highway. It's the perfect place to relax and enjoy good times. Follow them on Facebook for the latest events and specials. The Mile Away, where great food and great people come together. All right, let's jump into that college football preview, talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes with Travis Waldstein. Before you know it, you'll be dragging that camper off to the east and finding a place to put it for the season, because the first Hawkeye game is coming up on August 30th.
I know, it's 7 weeks. 7 weeks. I paid for my camping spot just before the 4th, so we're good to go. Got the tailgate spot down. I got an extra space, so if I got friends come over, got places to park, 2 blocks from the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
You know, got a great schedule this year. Man, I'll tell you, if you're an Iowa fan, with the Big Ten, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll get into it, but man, their schedule's pretty freaking awesome, I have to admit.
Which is what scares me.
Wow.
Historically, if you take a look at years that, looking at the schedule, you would think that, oh, this is just great, and then they'll go 6-4, and that's, I've seen that multiple times. I remember, well, you had an opportunity to meet Kirk Ferentz earlier this year. I had a chance to interview him. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's over 15 years ago, but at that time, I remember I looked at the schedule that was coming up. No Ohio State, no Michigan, had Penn State at home. They were on the road at Wisconsin, but all of the hard games they had were at home. And I asked him about that. And I said, is this an opportunity? And he very diplomatically didn't like the question. Because and he was nice about it. But at the same time, he set me straight. And he said, look, we don't have control over the schedule. That's not something that we set. We can only deal with what's directly in front of us, and that's what we're going to do. And he was right, and I was wrong. to look at it that way. Now, fans, I think we can talk about it, but bringing it up to the head coach, that was just not smart on my part. But
you know what? Go back to Kirk. Forget that whole deal. 100% right as far as schedule goes. I mean, the only games they really have any say is the first 3 games a year, and I'm going to say they only got control of 2 because Iowa State you're going to play. So they got 2 games that they got control of. So they got Albany and UMass, which are, those are, we're going to bring in the, hopefully the second team offense in the middle of the second quarter will be scored 35 points. Although 35 points for Iowa football the last few years.
Yeah, my desk is made of wood, and I'm knocking on it. You can tell because the camera's vibrating. So, because I've seen that too. I mean, what's happened with some of those schools that they've played that they should be blowing them out, and it just doesn't happen.
Okay, yeah, and that's just it. And well, and I think the thing is part of what you got to run into is, is what's Iowa's offense going to look like? I mean, I think that is absolutely. So what we're going to have to, we're going to see what they're going to be like, what they're going to do. But I'm going to tell you, going over to Iowa City here a month ago. So, and watch him prior. It's been a couple months ago. Folks, I know Iowa fans probably scary, and they'll probably come out and run the ball 40 times against Albany. But I'm going to tell you, they will throw the football this year. And they're going to be a lot better at throwing the football from the receivers I've seen, from everything they got going on, with the quarterback situation they got. Saw a lot of Hank Brown, saw a lot of Jackson Stratton Shaggy, saw a lot of him. Brendan Sullivan transferred. There's a reason Brendan Sullivan transferred. The day I was there was a Saturday practice. They were 11-11, and Brendan Sullivan could scramble and he could make some runs, but he was the 3rd best quarterback in that room that day, not including Mark Gronowski. And Gronowski was sitting there doing the reps, in his head, if that makes sense. So, and they have weapons. They're maybe not Ohio State. I mean, they don't have number 4 for Ohio State Smith. They don't have that player on the roster, but there's one team in America that's got a player like him. So, I mean,
right.
if you're an Iowa fan and you're looking at special teams, are still going to be good. They moved Xavier Wampert back to free safety, which, and they practice there a lot in the spring. And in that day, I watched them pick off 2 balls. Both of them, I think, were from Brendan Sullivan, actually. But, I watched him pick up a couple balls. Where I was going to have some time to develop, they're going to need a little bit of time with the defensive line. And I think they'll be all right there. I think where you're also going to see some issues with them is at linebacker. Every time that Iowa goes through this in the past, they got these next core group of linebackers. They're going to bring in 3 or 4 players. You can go back to Mitch King and Matt Krul. You go back to them days. You're going back 10, 15 years with some of these players, and then you've got your Josie Jules of the world. You can go back to, back in 2012, 2013 with them, that linebacker group there. And then this other one with Jay Higgins and, that group that just graduated last year, it's kind of next man up, and it's going to be interesting to see. They're going to make some mistakes early, but, Jack Campbell's brother is, probably looking at playing. They've got a lot of players in the defensive secondary, are at linebacker that I think are going to play very well. But, you're going to need to get yourself tuned up versus Albany, because you're going to Ames a week later, and that's going to be an interesting, that's going to be an interesting deal. But let's talk about Iowa State for a bit. I read a stat today.
All right.
It was in the Athletic, actually. They had the top 100 rivalries in all college football. Iowa, I think, was listed 5 times. So they were listed, let's see, Penn State, Iowa, Penn State, Iowa, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and Iowa State. Iowa, Wisconsin was actually the highest rated of that group, but Iowa State was mid-20s. What they said is if Iowa State was a little bit better, it'd be a top 20 rivalry, but Iowa State hasn't always been good. Now they're good now, and if they stay good, it could be a heck of a rivalry. But you know that in the last 13 games in that series, the visiting team is 11-2.
Really?
11-2 for Iowa State. Think about that for a minute. Because Iowa hasn't lost at Ames since, 2011? I think it's the last time we lost in Nebraska in Lincoln is like 2011. So you think about that. Iowa's lost the last 2 times. Iowa State's came to Kinnick, and I mean, you want to talk about ultimately rivalry game in kind of a blank you type situation. But I read that saying, I went, wow, that's pretty freaking cool, actually. So,
I actually, when you say that, I can think back and yeah, that would be right. But it's not something I've really thought about.
No.
And they're all tight games.
Oh, yes.
It's kind of the same way with 1 or 2 exceptions with Iowa, Nebraska. You go back, those games have been tight too. Yeah. But I think that's part of what makes it a rivalry. Now, back when, how long was that streak of Iowa beating Iowa State? 14 games?
15. I think 15 before McCarty beat it in 1998.
Right. Yeah. And those were typically just blowouts, back then.
Well, in Iowa, because in 97 they had Tim and Dwight, Tavian Banks, and that group. And 98, Iowa was favored in that game. But that was a year where Hayden had cancer. They lost a lot of his top assistants. And McCarty finally had 3 or 4 years in the program. And he finally had a team. They had Troy Davis. And, and then Iowa State beat them in Kinnick. And then they ran off 5 in a row before Iowa beat them. Iowa's played in the Orange Bowl in 2002. We were up 26-0 or whatever score was in Kinnick at half, and we lost Iowa State, in the second half in Iowa City, and Iowa State started off 7-1 before the wheels fell off in the second half of that year because Seneca Wallace was just a world beater for Iowa State. Yeah. I mean, and hell, he's still. Up until Brock Purdy came along, he was probably the best cycling quarterback that ever been through the program. So, but yeah, so that's going to be an interesting game because Iowa State, I think they're fairly young at receiver, but they got some good receivers. And, Matt Campbell is, punched Kirk back a couple times now. And, and that's what the rivalry is supposed to be about. Now, I hate losing Iowa State, don't get me wrong. But I'd rather, if you're going to lose a game, I'd rather lose to, Iowa State team by 1 at the last second at home that played in the Big 12 title game at the end of the year versus Iowa State that went 2-10. Or beat the snot of Iowa State that went 2-10. You'd much rather have that be a good game. And it's Ames is fun. And there's a lot of things going on in Ames with Cy-Town and their building and they're making a lot of changes in Ames too with the stadium. So I think if you get a chance to go over there, there'll probably be 50,000 people standing outside drinking Busch Light and, watching TV, which that's all right too. So
are you planning on doing that game in Ames this year?
Well, I want to.
It's a rough place. It's not friendly to Hawkeyes when you're there.
Yeah, you know what though? Number one, I'm not a small man, so so I've never. I can't say I've had a terrible experience with Iowa State fans. There was the one 2 years ago last year that blew chunks all over right in front of us at Kinnick, but she just couldn't handle our alcohol. So that's probably about the worst experience I had the last 10 years. It took till third quarter to come clean it up. It just smelled like vomit. That was great. So
well, before this goes completely off the rails, let's talk about the games here. Now, you mentioned Albany. That should be an easy win. Albany wasn't that good playing in their own conference last year, and they've lost a lot of players. So I'm not expecting, and 5:00 kick on that. That's
yeah, August 30th, 5:00 kick. It's like, wait a minute. So, yeah. Now when is August 30th? Let's look at I gotta look at the old Google machine here. Hang on here. Let's take a look here.
well, that should be about 6 weeks from this coming Saturday.
Yeah, well, we got to do the Google Calendar, so because I have to look. So, it is a That is a Saturday, 5:00. That's got to be on BTN. Why else would you do it? I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it's got to be a BTN as coverage. That's going to be, well, how do we feel? What do we look like? Hopefully, we get to see 3 quarterbacks and get to see lots of offensive productivity, and everybody can feel good. So
I'm taking a look here to see if they've got it posted where it's going to be at, and I don't see it yet. So anyway, that game is coming up on August 30th, 5:00 kick, and then the following September 6th is the Iowa State game in Ames. That's an 11:00 kick.
Yeah, that's either ESPN or Fox Big Dude kickoff game. So
right,
the last time that they had a Big Dude kickoff game at Ames, they couldn't find a big enough celebrity, so they brought in Ashton Kutcher in the Hawkeye Combine.
That's cold.
Yeah, the guest celebrities of Hawkeye in Ames.
They put Larry the Cable Guy on in Nebraska, so yeah, it's.
Yeah, well, that's true. So
okay, so figuring to get the win in Albany, the Iowa State game, it's just a toss up every year. It's hard to pick which way this one's going to go.
Yeah,
and regardless of how good the teams are, they're going to play close. That's just historically how it is.
I was the year that it ended up being 44-41 in what was it, double overtime or whatever it was. Akron Wildly won it. There was 2 years later where it was a 9-hour game and no one in Ames would sell the Iowa football team cheeseburgers, so someone had to run to Ankeny to get cheeseburgers for the football team. It's such a long delay. Terrible. And then, yeah, and even last year in Iowa City, I mean, just the last couple games. I mean, the game not last year, but 3 years ago in Iowa City, that's when Iowa State had the kid from Northwest Iowa that is not very good at gambling. What's the quarterback's name? He went to Iowa Western, but that was a 10-7 ball game, and it's like one series. Iowa thought they scored, and then Iowa State took it down 99 yards and scored.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the worst. Well, there was a lot of bad games that year. That was a bad game. So, and it rained. I remember it was 5 miles to my truck, and it rained, and that's when I decided I'm getting a parking spot very close to the stadium. That life decisions were made after that game. So.
Okay, moving on now to game number 3. You got UMass at home. That's an evening game, and again, it's that should be a win.
Yeah, that's another. It's a two. Kurt was it? I think Kurt coached it. Was it UMass? Yeah, I think was it UMass or what was it? Maine. Kurt coached at Maine, but there's some ties to the UMass program, and they're coming in. It's a paycheck for UMass. That's going to be called. Get healthy after the Iowa State game, no matter what happens, before you jump into the Big Ten. So,
and Big Ten starting with Rutgers. Now, usually you would say that's even on the road that that's a gimme game, but Rutgers just seems to keep getting a little bit better every year.
Yeah. Now I'm going to throw for the rare here. I listen. Iowa's going to start out 4-0. This is my opinion. I think Iowa State's going to be a close ball game, but I think Iowa's going to pull it out in Ames again just because that's the way the series has been. But if Iowa State won, I would not surprise. But I think Iowa will go be 4-0. I think they'll beat Rutgers. Now, Greg Schiano is a good football coach. He's got better players there. I think Greg Schiano, that'd be a big feather in his cap if he beat Iowa. Because I think that's one of them schools, along with Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan. If they could beat, or Wisconsin, if they could beat any one of them schools, it would help put Rutgers on the map. But they've got players. There's a lot of players in New Jersey that just don't go to the University of New Jersey, or AKA Rutgers. But they've got some players. I will say that. So.
And then the following weekend, they've got Indiana at home. I haven't heard how Indiana is going to be this year.
Well, we're going to find out because remember, Indiana made a college football playoff last year. They lost 27-17 to Notre Dame at Notre Dame. And, okay, it wasn't really that close of a game per se, but Indiana, look what they did in the Big Ten last year. I mean, they gave Ohio State all they wanted in the game. So, their coach was not William and Penn. He coached out east. There's a one AA school that's jumped up to Division One now. He's a coach. I mean, I don't know what it's gonna be like in the second year with his players, his system. It could be better. They could take a step back a little bit. That's going to probably be a marquee game. For the Big Ten, assuming that both come in 4-0. And I don't know anything about Indiana's schedule, but I have to believe Indiana is probably going to come in 4-0. So I expect that to be a big game. Yeah, I don't know. That without knowing a lot about Indiana, that one could be a toss-up very easily. So
after that comes Wisconsin. That game is on the road. Is Wisconsin any better this year?
I don't think so. I think Wisconsin. I think Luke Fickell could be. Luke Fickell's on a hot seat. I mean, he was able to do it at Cincinnati. He's an Ohio State guy. It was in Ohio. He came to Wisconsin. He's trying. I mean, you look at what he hasn't done anything in Wisconsin. And I think if Iowa beats them, which I think they will in Madison, I think that's the beginning of the end for Luke Fickell. If he isn't already on the hot seat, if you know what I'm saying. So,
yes, and then Penn State coming into Kinnick.
Yep,
and this is the Iowa Penn State game. Every time is just. It seems that Iowa plays better when they go to Happy Valley.
Yeah,
but. I've seen them go right down to the wire at Kinnick too.
Yeah. Well, here's the kind of fun. I was reading this article. I was telling you about this article today in the Athlete. If you get a chance, go back and read. It's one of the best articles I've read about rivalries. Iowa, Penn State. They've each game. Iowa has an 8 since 2000. Or is it 93 or 2000? I don't remember the date. But Iowa has an 8-game win streak in the series versus Penn State, and Penn State has got 2 5-game win streaks versus Iowa in this series. And they always talk about this game. It's always a close game. And I mean, it makes national TV a lot. I mean, there's a reason. You think, well, Iowa, Penn State, everything's wrestling, but I mean, 2018 when Josie Jewell was playing for Iowa, and I believe it was Saquon Barkley, who's now with the Eagles now, was playing for Penn State, and Penn State won in the last second a 4th down Hail Mary into the damn end zone versus Iowa. I mean, there's been a lot of games. I was there in 2008 when Joe Pa came in number 3 in Iowa, and Iowa beat him 24-23. I mean, there's been some good games. We've beat them up in Happy Valley. I mean, it's, and Franklin's kind of had Kirk's number, but then the last couple of times that Iowa's played him, Kirk's kind of got him back. So, I mean, Penn State's going to probably be the best team they're going to see all year, or Oregon, which it's, I mean, they're going to see me here. I mean, this game, I think will stay halfway close because of the bet. I'd be lying if I thought, I would tell you, if they don't lose to Indiana, I would predict them to lose to Penn State. But Penn State's got a lot of horses.
That if everybody's having the kind of year that they think they are, that game could garner a lot of attention and get scheduled at a night game. They seem to like to do that with Iowa Penn State. It seems that they love the night games with those two.
Yeah, and that'd be a fun night game to be at too. I can tell you that. I can tell you 2012 when Brendan Scherf and then the other tackle broke their leg on back-to-back plays against Penn State. That was not a fun game to be at. That was not fun at all.
So that is the first of a 3-game homestand. Second game, they get Minnesota at home.
Yep.
And again, I don't know what's going to happen with Minnesota. They're just such a huge question mark to me going into any season.
Well, this game's going to be interesting we got Mr. Row the Boat himself, good old Paul John Fleck. Yeah, not PJ, Paul John. So
Paul John.
Paul John Fleck. So call him by his official name. So, and Iowa had the DB that left Iowa because he didn't, after winter conditioning or whatever, because he did feel like he was getting a fair shake for the Iowa staff, and he's going to play DB at Minnesota, which I don't understand why you'd leave if you're going to be a secondary guy. You're going to leave playing for Phil Parker, who's probably the best defensive secondary coach in the country, to go play for whoever at Minnesota. And that's not a knock on Minnesota. The one thing you know about Minnesota is they'll have a huge offensive line. They'll have somebody that can run the ball. They probably won't have much of a quarterback because they never do. And they'll get up for Iowa like they did last time it was up there, and Iowa will throttle them in the second half because that's usually what happens.
There was no way Iowa was losing that game last year after what had happened the year before. There was no chance.
Yeah,
because everybody in the Hawkeyes was looking at making that phone call to Philadelphia.
Yeah, good old Paul John Fleck is 1-9 versus Iowa. They talk about beating Nebraska. You talk about beating Wisconsin. He don't talk about beating Iowa because it hasn't happened. Not very much. So,
right. And then the third game of that homestand, which after a week off will be welcoming the Ducks into town, and
another top 5 team at Kinnick. Yeah. That's. I don't know. Here's what I say. Penn State, Iowa, they've played it and whatever. Penn State damn near lost to Wisconsin last year. I mean, everybody forgets about, Penn State went 12-0, but I think it was like 21-15. It was some crazy score.
Yeah, it was a close game. Yeah.
I mean, Oregon was down till very late in the ball game. I don't know. There's something about, it's like when Iowa goes west to play out like they did in the Rose Bowl last year. And of course, then they got throttled by UCLA, and it's the same thing. Oregon's coming out to Iowa, of course, second year in the conference. I don't know. I mean, if you had to ask me to pick the game, I would pick Oregon. There's something about them West Coast teams coming back this direction. I mean, Washington did it last year and Iowa handled them. I think this game could be close, and I think it's just because of the travel. I just do. And then
they're going to make it at the least, they'll make it a 3 p.m. game because they don't want to lose the audience on the West Coast.
I think they should make it a 9 a.m. game.
Oh, yeah, let's do an early kick.
Let's make it 9 a.m. We're going to do an NFL Europe style game.
Yeah, I would be good with that. But that's not going to happen because you got 2 programs like that. Chances are one of the networks is picking it up. It won't be a Big Ten game. Yeah. And it'll be our Big Ten network game, I mean. So, yeah, it'll be probably 3 or it could even be a night game.
Yeah.
Then back out to Los Angeles to take on USC. Now, this team, USC has under-delivered.
And that's kind of like saying I'm a little overweight.
Right. So what is going to happen out there? Because, they've got a coach that if he does it again, I don't think they keep him.
Oh, yeah. Good old guy. Why can't I remember his name? Lincoln Riley. That's what it is. Yeah. I would call Mike Riley. I'm like, that's not it. So he should have just stayed at Oklahoma. I'm sorry. Right. I mean, he don't know how good he had it. Of course, he's on the left coast. He's paying more taxes, so good for him. This game scares me just because we're traveling to the West Coast. Kirk's had some very pointed things to say about Lincoln Riley and, how he's had the greatest offense on earth and he's had like the worst defense on the face of the earth. Lincoln's probably going to maybe have something to say, try to rub his nose in a little bit. But I think this is one of them games where this is where you want Iowa to have a good rushing attack. Because if they can run and pass the football and they can keep USC off the field, this would be one of them games. And this is a game I'm actually considering going to, actually. So you asked me about going to games. Yeah, this is one I wouldn't mind going out. I wouldn't mind flying out. I would actually get on a plane, which is scary. get a game, and have my son drive up from Yuma. We would go to the USC game. This is what I'm thinking. Yeah, we never been. I hate going to the Rose Bowl. I've seen enough misery in my life in the Rose Bowl. I don't care if I ever go back. Sorry. But this game, USC, I've been to a game once or 30-some years ago. The Raiders and the Giants played in a preseason game. It was a dump then, but to watch your college team, I might go out there for that. So.
Okay, and one last home game of the regular season. They bring Michigan State into town, and, that should be a win, but
well, I thought that last year too, and we laid the worst egg of the year up up there. And John L. Smith, I mean, he was out at Oregon State, and you can win at Oregon State, you can win anywhere, especially when they were actually the real Pac-12, not whatever the Pac-12 is now. Mm-hmm. Texas State Bobcats and Sam Houston and whatever else the Pac-12 is now. But was the real Pac-12? I mean, he was good out there, and, I think he's got some resources at Michigan State, and I think that's why he left. That's why he left his alma mater. He didn't have a choice in the matter. Michigan State seems that, there's some early indications that they're actually out recruiting Michigan in the state of Michigan, which I don't know if that means a whole lot because Michigan recruits nationally. Michigan will take a player or two from Michigan, but they're going all over the country. So this is a game I feel pretty good about, but we're going to kind of see how the year falls. Who knows what Michigan State's schedule, if you had to look at me right now, I would say if Iowa comes out of that game 8-3. So I think they'll lose to Penn State. I think they'll probably lose to Oregon, and they'll lose to either Iowa State or Indiana. That would put them at 8-3. So if you're 8-3 Iowa, you're coming to the Nebraska game. 9-3 is probably not going to get you the Big Ten title game because I think that's going to come down to Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, maybe Michigan. I no, but if you're talking playoff with a 12-team or soon to be 16-team playoff, if you're 8-3 after that schedule and you've played Penn State and Oregon close and you beat Indiana, and if you beat Indiana and Iowa State's good again and you played very well but lost a couple close games, you're going to get a large shot. So that end of the game against Nebraska down in Kinnick West will be an important ballgame.
As I said, next week we will be releasing the entire conversation on Travis's next episode of Circle of Trades. Travis did a lot more talking than just about Iowa. There's also Nebraska, Iowa State, and even mixed up some local events going on around the area. So that conversation, complete conversation, coming up next week on Circle of Trades. Big thank you to Bryce Taylor with GLI Insurance Group. GLI Insurance Group is a locally and family-owned independent insurance group that's been helping people find the best possible plan for them for over a decade. Bryce has an office just up the road from Council Bluffs and Crescent. He's also the founder of the Facebook group Council Bluffs Food Lovers. Bryce and I go out to area restaurants to bring you reviews, and we'll be bringing you the next one coming up very, very soon. Since 1870, Avila Bank has been providing Iowans with high-quality financial products and services to fit their needs. Whether you need a loan, would like to start a new business account, need to save money for a trip, or are looking to open a personal checking account, Avila's qualified bankers can help you with all of that and more. Visit avila.bank to learn more. And S&B Country Kennel has become the top spot in Southwest Iowa when you need to know your dog will receive only the best. Boarding, daycare, grooming, self-washing, training, even a membership available to a dog park that's over an acre in size. S&B Country Kennel also has rescue dogs, so check with them about adoption possibilities. S&B Country Kennel, located just west of I-29 on Bunkie Avenue, south of Council Bluffs. Thanks again, Travis Waldstein, for giving us your Hawkeye preview, and I'll let you know when that next episode of Circle of Trades drops. My name is Todd Studer. We'll see you back here again tomorrow morning.